Is Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. It is 1:17 p.m. This is a special meeting of Mid-Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves is absent. Richard Valley is stepped away for a minute. Doug Verboon.
Here.
Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Robert Thayer.
Here.
Kimber Regan. Here. And Richard Valley.
Here. We have 5 members present, 1 absent. At this time, please all rise for Pledge of Allegiance and salute our nation's flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to unscheduled appearances. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items of interest within the board jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda. The board will not answer questions impromptu, and concerns or complaints will be referred to the appropriate staff. For items which are on the agenda, members of the public will be provided with an opportunity to address the board as each item is brought up for discussion. Speakers should limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards?
We did not receive any written comments. We do not have any speaker cards. Doesn't appear anybody online with their hand raised, and we do have.
Is there anybody in the audience that have to? Yes, ma'am. Step up to the microphone, take your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Desiree Woodworth, 2607 14th Avenue, Kingsburg, California, 93631. And I just wanted to follow up from the last meeting that I attended. And Alta Irrigation District said that they do not have any recharge projects in the works that would benefit Mid-Kings GSA.
Very good. We don't answer the questions now, but someone will be getting back to you. And I do know that they have been over there and have meetings with them. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. And that's item A, approval of the minutes from special meeting, November 18th, 2025. Motion by Supervisor Robinson, second by Supervisor Thayer. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Richard Valley. Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Kimber Regan.
Yes.
So 5 in favor, 1 absent. Move on now to consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted by one motion. If a board member has a question, requests additional information, or wishes to comment on an item, the vote should not be taken up until after questions have been addressed or comments made. And the public has an opportunity to comment on the consent calendar items. What's the board's pleasure?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by Supervisor Robinson.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Thayer. Do we have any comments from the public? Do you have anybody online? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Kimber Regan.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 absent. We'll move on now to consent count on a regular stakeholder committee or regular calendar. Item A is stakeholder advisory committee update, and we have Garrett Gilcrease, chairperson. Good afternoon, sir.
Whatever you want to call me. Yeah, I mean, same as last time. Nothing's changed. You guys got questions? Let me know. I mean, we're getting to the meat of it now of what this is going to mean for people. But yeah, it's all going good from the stakeholder advisory group. Yeah, nothing really to report. You'll see it from Amir here, what we've been going through. And like I say, I think this one took us about 4 or 5 meetings to finally kind of narrow down a little bit. But
So
yeah.
Yesterday's meeting went okay. I mean,
What's that?
Yesterday's meeting was all right.
Yeah, it went good. I mean, it's you're talking about registering wells and things like that. That's not really painful, right? That's just that's another thing to do in the off season, but now it's getting painful.
Yeah.
But I think it's also painful from an understanding point of view too. There's different methods of calculating water use and how guys are going to fit this in. I was talking earlier about planning, what you can do, when you can do it, how much you're going to have. Even with us sitting in there every day, it's very, very confusing. And so I got to really feel for the people that aren't in those meetings all the time as to how confusing and scary this might be. But knowing that, I mean, we did the best we can, or doing the best we can, as much flexibility as we can. So in that regard, we're doing the best with the cards we have. So
Yeah, it's difficult that not everybody pays attention and shows up. Worst thing you can do is go to a barbecue for Christmas and be late and everyone drinking and they all have questions for you because why are you doing it to them? And I said, I haven't done anything yet.
so you had an interesting barbecue, I take it.
I left. Yeah. I used to have more friends. I got less now.
Yeah, and that's the trouble. I think going through this thing, I'm halfway schizophrenic. You think about it one way one day, another day another way another day, and I mean it's really complex issue. And so yeah, I get questions too about this. Should be simple. The deeper you get into it, the more complex it is. So yeah, it's tough, but oh yeah. So outreach. Andy, help me on that one. I think he might talk about that today, maybe. But we had a couple outreach events here that were good. We planned on having a lot more. That's based on other reflections that the state has given to other GSAs and things. So far, they've been good. We had a lot of comments come in that were the tenor of the comments were interesting, but they were more around how do we plan? Like, what is this going to be? What am I looking at? Very few were. I mean, they probably were reserving them, but that went around. This is terrible. I'm not going to comply or anything like that. So that's good, and that people are wanting to know what we can do. And we're going to do a lot of outreach events. I think we have 12 scheduled over the next 6 months or so, something like that, as we wade into this deal. I think those will uncover more questions than give answers at that point. But the good thing is everything's in black and white. I mean, it's very, very straightforward. And now we have these policies. There was a question that came up in the last meeting about comments. And this particular one is around comments from the GSA about new projects in the county. And we've gone through these policies very, very heavily. I think the good thing now is if there is any comments from the GSA, it's go to policy A, go to policy B. And that's a good way of having it very streamlined for people and very black and white. So that's the hope. And that's what we've been working really hard on doing. So is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be kind of clunky getting started? Yes. But I think as far as us in the sub basin, we're set up pretty well as compared to our surrounding places, maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, and I see that. I read everything last night, and it seems like we got some comments come from other GSAs, and it shows you that we cannot have one plan for all 5 GSAs. And this is nothing new. We've been talking about this for 11 years now.
Yep.
And the last 2, it's been really critical that we can't come together with one plan. So we need to mind our own business and stay in our own lane and focus on what we can do to help each other out in our GSA, and then work with our neighboring GSAs as we get things under control.
Correct.
I know for myself, I have to touch it, see it, taste it, smell it before I understand it.
Yep.
And so I'm not fully, I don't fully understand how it will affect me. I know in my head when I figure it out, I'm not farming 100% of my ground anymore, and I'm pretty well off when it comes to surface water versus groundwater. So it's going to be difficult, but I think we can get through it. It's just that yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I don't think the question is will you have to fallow, it's how much is the big one. And that's the people thing that everyone has to get their head wrapped around. But it's also going to take
the neighbor's ground. I don't want to foul mine.
Yeah, I mean that's everyone's hope, right? Is that it might go that way, but this is going to be a collective effort. I mean, there's no getting around this one. It's just giving people all the information so they can make the best decisions possible.
I got a call from a neighbor in one GSA complaining about another neighbor, another GSA, how he's wasting water farming that ground. So we're going to have that. So I really don't want to see our county implode. I would hope that we can all work together and help each other out. And I think we have your group is a good group to start with. But we'll find out here shortly.
Well, there's going to be a lot of give and take, but right now there's no plan that's in solidarity, right? And if you have the rules of the game laid out, then you can start making deals with people and trying to figure out a way forward that's best for everybody. But until we get something concrete and moving, no one knows what's coming next. So I think it's kind of had a lot of people on the sidelines. So hopefully this will, as we get further in this process, provide some clarity so that people understand that, see where they can adjust, how they can farm, and work with their neighbors. So. It's a goal.
Very good. Thank you again. I do appreciate your
Yep.
group. I really mean it means a lot to us because at a government agency, we don't want to discuss it. We just want you guys to discuss it, bring it together, and we'll vote on it and try to implement it. So
Yep.
thank you again.
Cool.
Okay, we'll go move on now
All
to
right.
item B. Is there any questions on that item? Does anybody have questions for Garrett? He's ready for a question. Andy's there to help him too.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no questions, we'll move on now to item B. Consider adopting a resolution to establish an allocation policy for Mid-King River GSA. Amir, you're still with us?
I am, yes. Good afternoon. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Amir Hussein. I'm with GeoCentric Consultants, and we are the consultants for the GSA. I think I have a presentation for you. So, Mr. Chair, bear with me. I'm gonna do a little bit of an update on a few things, just kind of set the table a little bit, and then jump into the allocation, and then the presentation will have also cover the other portions of some of the other items on the agenda as well.
Are we doing a presentation on our end, guys? Brian, are we doing a presentation? Chuck?
I've got someone that's going to be sharing their screen very
Okay. All right.
quickly.
You got any jokes, Amir? You got any friends left?
I don't know if I don't I think I'm like Garrett here. They're getting fewer and fewer here.
Hey, where'd you park?
Yeah, no. Oh, really far away. So as we're waiting, I'll just give you a quick update. I'm gonna give you an update on some of the things that are happening for the GSA. I'll give you an update on the GSP and where we're at on getting the document done. I'll give you an update on the stakeholder outreach program for 2026, what's upcoming. And then we'll talk about the groundwater allocation policy. And we'll also cover the well mitigation pilot program, which is the next item on your agenda as well.
We have a question.
Yes. So let me start while Chuck's getting that set up. There is one thing I can talk about to give you an update. Oh, there we are. Okay, perfect. You can go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these are the items that we're going to talk about. A quick update on what's going on with the GSA, the groundwater sustainability plan, and our stakeholder outreach program, the groundwater allocation policy, which is the item on the agenda that we're here for, and then the next two items, which will be the well mitigation pilot program and the draft revise of the sustainable management criteria as well. So next slide, please. So just always just trying to set the stage for everybody. We're going to show you the map of the GSA and the surrounding sub-basin GSAs as well. So we're the area in purple, just in case we've got people online here who are new to the whole GSA issue in Sigma. Next slide. This is the small little screen, and again, we have these maps that if you contact Chuck, he'll be happy to get you copies of these maps. They're also on our website. But this is our best understanding of all the wells in the GSA right now. And if the board remembers, we have a well mitigation program, a well registry program that we'll be implementing as we'll start to revise this and hopefully update it, eliminate wells that no longer exist and add any new ones in there as well.
I can't read what it says, but what's the black wells?
Those are the shallow A zone wells.
Okay.
That's the like roughly 100 feet and above.
Okay.
You can see that they're all on the west side of the GSA. And that's kind of where that shallow zone ends on that west side there.
Okay. And so if we have a question, we want to go tonight and go back home and look at this, we can find this on what website?
On the Mid-Kings River
Mid-Kings
GSA.
River GSA,
Yeah.
okay. It's easy to, I flipped to it last night, so it is, we can do it, I can do it. So,
Yes.
No.
All right, next slide,
it's just
please.
nice to be able to make it
Oh,
bigger and see where
yes.
you're at and what the neighbors are doing.
That is our best understanding. Again, at this time, we hope to update and revise that. And like I said, eliminate any old wells that don't exist anymore. This is the cumulative subsidence since 2015. So all of those numbers, the red obviously is the areas with the highest subsidence. The blue is the area with the least amount of subsidence.
And
So
that's the whole, almost the whole county, not just our GSA.
yeah, that's the entire it's in our entire subbasin and portions of the neighboring subbasins. So you can see that we go into both the Tule and Kauai on the east side there. Next slide, please. Okay, so let me get you into some of the updates now. With the settlement, or excuse me, at least the issue of the injunction being lifted on the Kings County Farm Bureau lawsuit, we went ahead and contacted the state Water Resources Control Board staff and said, hey, you had said that you weren't talking to us because of the injunction. The injunction's been lifted by the judge or the appellate court. We should start scheduling some meetings. So it took them a little bit. Initially, their initial response last month was to say, we'll talk to you in December. So December 1st rolled around. I immediately contacted them and said, hey, let's set up some meetings. And they responded back after about a week and a half and said that due to the ongoing litigation, they will not be meeting with us at this time. So the state staff is still not talking to the Tulare Lake subbasin GSAs at this time. The other thing that was interesting in their email was on May 1st, all of our growers and pumpers are supposed to report their pumping values dating back to July of 24 through September of 25. And that's supposed to happen May 1 of 2026. They did say that they'll provide some further clarification and updates on that deadline, which I thought was an interesting comment. We don't know what that means because they're not talking to us. But we'll try, and our response was I got all the GSA managers together. We talked. The GSAs opted to pursue it on their own individually. So if there's individual GSAs that may be reaching out to the state board staff and some of the board members directly. And I'm sure if there's some letters that may be going back and forth, but as we become aware of that, we will continue to let this board know as well.
I got a real quick question. Mr.
Yes.
Chair. So, I mean, it's kind of astounding to me that this regulatory board in the state of California isn't talking to this Mid-Kings GSA. It's not our lawsuit.
Yeah, it's not our
For
lawsuit.
the record, I'm appreciative of the Farm Bureau in that pursuit. And so what happens if that one gets settled and another local grower fires a shot across their bow? Are they going to still not talk to us?
Yeah, I don't know. Their email basically said it's a highly contentious litigation, and
So is Sigma.
yeah, yeah. So they just said that they won't be communicating with us at this time, and they hope to do so in the future. So our response was, obviously, we're surprised to get this, and we were hoping that happens quickly.
So totally hypothetical question. Let's just say we had this wonderful plan all in place now, and it's just the gold standard, and all of our growers are 100% behind it, and we presented it to them. They wouldn't even take it probably at that point because they're not communicating.
We don't even know if they would review it. That was one of the comments that one of the GSA managers made on our call the other day, that we're not even sure if we turned in a plan today, if they would even review it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, but it just seems like that's a tactical edge that good brains in the building, can circle the wagons and help advise on it. But I mean, I'm a dim light bulb, I think, and if I caught it, I'm sure others have as well. So
Yeah, obviously I'm not an attorney either, so I'm gonna leave that to those folks to decide if there's anything worth pursuing there.
So I just came from a rural county representing California meeting, which is, I think it's 41 counties in California, which are like us with Sigma. And I said, you know, when we go to Sacramento, we go to Washington, D.C., each time we talk to our legislators, they ask where our associations are, where are our state associations, where do they stand when it comes to water? We can't get a policy in place that says you should deliver X number of acre feet to certain growers. And there's nothing that backs us up. And you need that backup. So I brought it up to the rural county representatives on Wednesday. And I picked a fight with our staff because how dare you? We have agreements in place, he says. I said, yeah, but the agreements you have in place aren't the people that I represent. It's not anybody in this room that represents you. And she wouldn't even let me talk. And this is someone from our area that says, no, we have agreements with the San Joaquin County. We have agreements with the Bay Delta Accord. We can't go against those agreements. And I said, we have nobody on our side anywhere in the state of California. We have the federal government that released 200,000 more acre feet through the Delta to provide water to the farmers on the west side. And she's against that. And I said, so there's no one fighting for us but us ourselves. And we can't get any traction because no one will talk to us. And we don't have any state agencies backing us up. So I don't see a win-win here. I mean, I know we're doing all we can to come together with doing what they ask us to do, but they won't even talk to us to tell us we're going in the right direction. This is very frustrating.
Yeah, and
And
some
it
of the
really had nothing to do with your presentation other than, holy shit, this is not good. And I would love to have someone back us up. And I did come up with an ordinance that made it illegal to sell your groundwater. I can't enforce without the state. And I don't even know if they're going to support me on that. So it makes it difficult to understand if we're even going the right direction. We got almost 2 years invested into this group, and plus the time before that, plus other GSAs that are falling apart in other counties as we speak. Some agencies just walked away, and Clary County took over one with people that don't know anything about groundwater or farming. So I think it's good that we stay together and don't lose our what we're focused on here is to keep ag strong in Kings County, but we're kind of by ourselves.
that idea of them not talking to us is going to come up in my presentation later as well. So you'll hear me say that. Yeah, no, it's the reality. I'm going to keep moving just in the interest of time to get everybody out of here. But there's 4 upcoming RFPs that the Mid Kings River GSA is going to release. We are looking for support with our well registration platform. This is the actual software where people will be able to go in and register their wells. This is for the GSA. Again, this is not the state platform. This is the GSA platform. It's going to help us improve that map that you saw earlier. We're also going to be updating the website. It is solely, really badly needs updating. It's been a while. Make it a little bit more user friendly. The well mitigation services. This is the domestic wells and the ones that might be growing dry in the area. We need to be able to make sure that people are aware of that program and how they would apply for that program. So the idea here is to have someone help us with the emergency water so that if someone does apply, they have those services right away. And then finally, for the fee election, whatever that ends up being, whether it's a Prop 218 or Prop 26, whatever that decision is made at that time, we'll have someone there to help us with that as well. So there's 4 upcoming RFPs that are going to be pretty important for the GSA moving forward. And then the other item on here is we are implementing a pilot program for the domestic well mitigation. I'm going to go into that in more detail here in the next item on the agenda. Next slide, please. So as far as the groundwater sustainability plan is concerned, the items that we've got crossed out are the items that have been completed. We are going to be talking about the groundwater allocation here in a minute. I'm going to then present you with some revised definitions for the draft sustainable management criteria. We're still in the process of updating our stakeholder outreach program. And finally, we're also working on a water quality management program. the stakeholder committee that Garrett and Andy represent we're presented some of these to them as drafts. They have some questions and comments, and so we're working through those and trying to work and get those finalized hopefully by next month, so that by the time we meet again in January, we'll have something for you to approve on the water quality plan as well. So these are one of the key things on the water quality. Just to give you a little preview of one of the sticking points is what happens and what does the GSA's responsibility if there is a detection above a certain level, and where and how many wells do we sample, or any, and who do we notify, and what are the steps, and what are the triggers, and what actions are triggered if we exceed those values. So we're only sampling, we're proposing to sample about 49 wells across the entire GSA, and as you know from that map, there's thousands of wells. How many of those wells are we responsible for, and what happens for water quality? Right, it's one thing for a well to go dry. It's a whole different thing if you have a well that has an exceedance on, I'll just make up something, nitrates or something like that, right? So that's what we're trying to work through and trying to figure out where that balance of what we can do as a GSA, what the requirements from the state. This would have been one where input from the state actually would have been very helpful to have some discussions back and forth with them. But that's an ongoing issue that we're working through with the stakeholder committee right now. Next slide, please. So the timeline for the submittal of the groundwater sustainability plan, you've seen this before. We're working through the updated definitions on the sustainable management criteria with the other GSA managers right now. We want to finalize all of our policies by next month, prepare a draft groundwater sustainability plan specific to the Mid-Kings River GSA. We will have our own plan by the end of February, and then have all of it ready to go and be prepared to submit to the state by the end of March. So even with the state not communicating with us, we are not deviating from this timeline. We feel that this is what we should be focused on. Oh, I'm sorry, December 25. Yeah, sorry. I didn't even catch that. I've seen that. I looked at that figure like 15 times. I didn't catch that. All right. Yeah, that's December 25. Next slide, please. So let me give you just a preview. I think most of the people in this room probably are aware, when Kern went in to try and get out of probation, or stay out of probation, I should say, they got delayed for almost 6 months and had to spend a whole bunch of money because the state felt that their outreach efforts were not adequate and that they had not done enough. So we are really putting a real emphasis on stakeholder outreach for the next year. I'm going to give you a little preview of what that looks like. Next slide, please. So there's 4 main campaigns that we have for next year. One is to make sure everyone's aware of whatever the well registration program is. How do you use it? How do you use the software? Try to make it as straightforward, help them out, make sure that they're aware of where the support comes from. The next one is to make sure that everyone who might be affected is aware that the domestic well mitigation program does exist. How do they submit an application? How do they take advantage of it? How do they get water delivered? Who do they contact? Things of that nature. And then obviously the big one is going to be whatever that fee and whatever that value is going to be. How did we come to it? What is the election going to look like? And making sure that there's plenty of outreach to everyone to know what those values are and how much they're going to be expected to pay. And then finally, whatever that updated groundwater sustainability plan, what's in the plan, how does it affect them, and making sure that they have adequate time to comment on it as well. We're still going to be sending out weekly emails. We're going to be updating our social media sites a couple times a week. We're doing up to 12 workshops, probably at least 2 workshops per each one of those 4 main campaigns, and then some additional ones towards the end of the year. We're going to do some pop-up events, meaning that we're going to show up at fairs and other local community events and have tables and handouts and other things of that nature to try and reach people who aren't, coming to these meetings or the stakeholder meetings. update the website, make sure that there's fresh content on the website. And then we're actually going to be doing some video content too, as we get people to interview and put some content up on some of the social media and YouTube, those types of things, so that we can start to reach others as well. So these are some of the things that we've seen that have been effective in some of the other surrounding subbasins, and that things that the state has also recommended as well. Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's a lot, but yeah, we're trying to make sure that we're not overbearing, but we're also trying to make sure that people are aware of what all the things that is going to potentially affect them, and the programs that the GSA does have, so that we try to reach as many of the people that we can. And again, the folks in this room are obviously very engaged. They know what's going on. It's everyone else that I'm trying to reach. Next slide, please. Okay, so now the groundwater allocation policy. This is probably the main reason we're here today. Next slide. So just a quick summary of everything that we've done to date. Obviously, we've worked quite a bit with the stakeholder committee. We got a draft put together, and then between October 1st or 15th and December 1st, we had a 45-day outreach period. We had 2 workshops, one in person, one virtual. We mailed out mailers to everybody through using the county roles there. We updated the website. We had our social media platforms up and running, and we started receiving emails and comment letters. We went through and started reviewing all of that. Next slide, please. Actually, I think the number is more than 90 now. There were some more comments that came in afterwards as well, but yeah, in excess of about 90 comments, questions. We had, I think, about around 50 people show up to the in-person. We had about another 40 or so people show up online. Some pretty good representation across the entire GSA and people that were actively involved. And then we took all the comments and we summarized them. I believe you made that available, Chuck, if I remember. Oh, no. Okay.
I've got a real quick question on that.
Yes.
So the 90 public comments, are those like future 218 voters?
They certainly could. Yeah, most likely I would say yes, because they were very engaged.
Okay.
The fact that they showed up and engaged with us during this process tells me that they're most likely people that are very engaged on the Sigma process.
And just, can you remind this board approximately how many 218 votes are in the Mid-Kings? Any idea?
I don't have that number yet. Once we get the consultant on board to help us with the election process and the public outreach for that is when we will start dialing in on what a successful campaign would take.
Got it.
Okay, next slide, please. So we took all the comments, we logged them, we reviewed them with the stakeholder committee. We kind of started grouping them into some common topic areas. They were, we kind of started to identify some reoccurring themes. There was a lot of requests just for some clarification. There were some comments that clearly were not related to the allocation policy, but Sigma as a whole. So what became obvious was that we probably needed an FAQ, a frequently asked question document up on our website to try and answer as many of these as we could. So one of the things we've done is we went ahead and prepared an FAQ that we're going to post to the website that answers a lot of the questions and comments that were raised you know, as we, like I said, we started to see a lot of common themes and things of that nature. So we've gone ahead and put together a draft. The stakeholder committee is reviewing that FAQ page or paperwork now. We did get some additional comments, as I said, so we're probably going to add a little bit to the FAQs and then post those so that people feel like we heard their comments, we saw their questions, and we're going to get those answered. We're not going to do it one at a time or individually, but you start to see a lot of trends, and we'll be able to answer some of their bigger questions that way as well. Next slide, please. So there were about 4 main comments that we felt directly affected, and we modified the document specifically based on these. There was a comment about being able to opt out of the allocation policy. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed that right up front in the introduction part of the document. There was a question about how and when the document can be changed. How does that process work? And again, we made a modification to the document right up front on how we would do that. And that, of course, is through the board process. There was some questions about how do we treat fallow land. And we wanted to make sure that was clear that for the areas that are using evapotranspiration and the satellite data, we are not going to count the fallow lands against them, and it's not going to get subtracted from their accounts, and that we would zero out those parcels so that there's no ET value shown against those, and their individual allocations would not be affected by that. And then we received a number of comments from the tribe that we also incorporated into. Those were actually very helpful. I think there was some clarification there that helped make the document a little bit stronger and better for that.
Were those approved comments by the tribal council, or was it from individuals?
There were comments from the attorneys for the tribe.
So then that's coming from the tribe.
Yes, coming from, yeah. So he reviewed them and then gave us back some very helpful comments.
Would you explain also what the approach on whether or not people can opt out on the allocation policy is? You mentioned that was a question, but not
what
the response was.
Yes. So we did clarify in the policy that the policy is in effect for all pumpers in the area, and there's not a process to opt out. So the policy, if you qualify for the policy, which means you're someone who pumps more than 2 acre-feet per year, the policy does apply to you. There's not a opt-out option on that.
And if I could also add, the stakeholder advisory committee were presented all of the comments to be able to review, and when they went through some of the draft allocation policy was amended to address those items. The bottom 2 bullets here talking about non-irrigated lands or fallowed land and the Tashioka tribe. Those are 2 comments that came in after the stakeholders had an opportunity to review it, and Amer has provided a revised allocation policy for everybody to see, where he's highlighted within the document, in particular on page 5 of adding language concerning the fallowed lands, and then on page 8, adding the 2 words that the tribe was asking to be added to the language. And so when you're looking at this document, the stakeholder advisory committee did recommend the vast majority of this, but I want to point that out, that the 2 highlighted areas are additions since their actions because of trying to address the comments from the community and making sure that we get as much in, so that when you decide, you can choose to go with what the stakeholders approved completely, or you can choose to add those additional line items as well.
board be available to show what their thoughts are on the additional language.
We have many stakeholders in the room that I'm sure would be willing to come up and speak at the podium if they are asked.
Any volunteers?
I just have a quick question, Mr. Chair. So at the public outreach, are you just recording their questions and then later on you're going to address them all together? Or did you actually try and answer some questions during that outreach meeting?
The questions that were asked at the outreach sessions, we definitely engaged and tried to answer those and try to draw out more information depending on what the question was, so that we fully understood it as well and try to answer those. And then we recorded those comments as well, so that we would have an ability to go back and make sure that everybody else gets a chance who wasn't at those two sessions would also be able to see how we responded to those questions.
Did you do the same online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, both.
So on the stakeholders, could I get your guys' thoughts on the two word changes here? Garrett, where'd Garrett go?
He stepped
He
out.
snuck out. We'll answer that later. How about you, Andy? You got an answer on that? On page 8 on item G, good standing means a landowner who complied with any and all applicable policies, procedures, and ordinances of Mid-Kings River is current on all applicable fees. To me, it seems the same, but I'm not an attorney.
It was the adding of the words applicable to
Applicable.
What is a good standing.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference would be. I mean, I'm sure if an attorney wrote it, it means something. It takes money out
Our
of it.
attorney might have comment.
It's just to clarify that not all of the policies and not all of the fees may apply to a certain group. So they're just complying with all of the ones that do apply to them.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Andy. Yeah. Good job. That was an attorney question, but that's fine. Thank you. So to make sure that the board understands it.
Do you want to add anything? I'm not to put you on the spot.
Okay. I don't think that changes what you guys agreed to. It just makes it that they're covered on their end. It's not really a game changer.
So Mr. Chairman, the stakeholders got to see all the comments, all 90 comments, and then we went through to see which ones they felt needed to be specifically addressed to change the document.
Very good. I know I got a phone call from the media, wondering what my thoughts were on all the comments. I'm like, well, I'm staying out of it. I'm talking, everything I talk about is going to be on the record with a microphone on. I'm not going to have my mind made up outside of the meeting because that's what happened last time. So, very good.
The public comment period or public comments received did not, at the end of the day, we made a decision not to alter the value of the allocation. I think you're all aware that there was comments from some of our neighboring GSAs that raised some concerns. We continue to engage with our neighboring GSAs. In fact, we had a meeting last week regarding this very topic. The subbasin has not come to a one unified method for determining groundwater allocation, but that discussion continues, and all 5 GSAs were represented in the room, and we've all agreed to continue those conversations.
Good. I think it's important. I mean, I made a comment the other day at our board meeting. I drove from Highway 99 to I-5 through Madera County. And the difference between Madera County and Kings County is their land is consistent from one freeway to the other. We don't have that consistency here. We can go 3 miles and see a difference in the ground, from the salt layer to the water level to nothing growing to have the best ground in the world. So I think it's best we stay focused on the area we live in and try to fine tune that and not worry about what our neighbors are doing. But then we work on the edges when we're all said and done.
As much as we can, we're attempting to coordinate so that we can go to the state with a coordinated value. It was, I think some of you may have seen some of the comments that came back on when Kern was released by the state, turned back over to Department of Water Resources from the State Water Board. They specifically used the language about coordination in there. So we are working closely with all of our surrounding GSAs, but we're also moving forward with getting our document complete that represents our needs in our
And
area.
I think in the future, maybe the individual farmer that farms both sides needs to have the attention of both GSAs
Yes.
that he can comply to and to do property line assessments because the waters, it's round and the lines are square.
We do address that specifically in our allocation policy.
Okay.
So we do allow some flexibility there for people who have neighboring property on both within two GSAs.
Good.
Anything else I can answer? I don't know if you're going to take questions from comments from the.
Do we? That's all. That's your presentation. Any
First, yeah,
questions
yeah.
from the audience? Now's your time. Everybody's thinking. Nobody wants to show their cards. Okay, we'll move on. I think this is an action item. I think in time, once we use it for a year, we'll understand what our questions are going to be.
Yes.
So this
Yes.
is, I think we get started.
We fully anticipate that the document will be changing over time. I'll just to mention Kuya, they've on their third version of it already, and it's been about 3 years. So everyone figures out that you got to change these.
I don't want to be threatened for doing this, but
I got.
yes, sir.
Because I'm kind of just curious, and I go back to what Garrett's comments at the podium earlier. And I don't know if I should ask this or not, but I'm gonna roll the dice and do it. So, like, what kind of confronting issues were there amongst the group that coming up with this final draft? What were some of the, like, what's not in here that
Ooh. There was a lot. There was some lively discussion. Let's put it that way, for sure, because this is we're starting to put pumping limits, and so there's I think probably the number one question was, has all the water input sources been considered in the value that we're giving out? Precipitation. There was a lot of discussion about wet years and are we handling the wet years correctly? All of these values are based on some long-term averages, and that's the best we can do for the initial value that we set aside. I think some of the comments that you saw from some of our neighboring GSAs, there was some discussion about, hey, should we be doing something similar to them, or should we do our calculate it our way? So there was a lot of ongoing discussions about that. There was, how do we handle certain industries? How do we handle the city? Are they also going to be responsible and be held to the same standards as the ag community is going to be? So there was a lot of airing a lot of internal discussions, but there was a lot of discussion along those lines. This took us several months. I think this is version 11, if I remember correctly. We went back and forth on several things. Probably the number one though is everyone's just concerned to make sure, are we considering all of the different water sources that are out there, and does this value take that into account?
Is there a value place, and help me out with this? Like, most of the time when I read about subsidence, it's a lot of it is what's taking place below the Corcoran clay, and that water is never going to be recharged allegedly ever. I don't know.
Very slowly.
But that's not going to, people aren't going to stop pumping from under there. So are we not just on a trajectory of continuing to sink? And then my second kind of question with that is too, is there a piece in there, and does it even matter about how deep are you pumping water from? If you're pumping water from 80 feet versus 300 feet, is there a difference in the quality of the water, and does that recharge? You get where I'm kind of going with that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that question, because that is one of the big questions. We were trying to decide at one point if we should set pumping limits and allocation by zone. So one of our neighboring GSAs right now has set, to South Fork, for example, has set in the upper aquifer, you can only pump this much, and then below the clay, you can pump a much smaller number. And so we had that discussion, At this time, it was felt like we wanted to have a value, a lower value, but not as low as South Fork below the clay. But what we did instead was and this was approved by the board at our last meeting, we set that subsidence management plan. And that in the areas where we are seeing subsidence, as if you recall from my map earlier, it's not consistent everywhere, right? There were areas of red, there were some areas of blue. That, what we want is we'll address the subsidence in the areas where it's happening. And there may be further limits on pumping below the clay in those areas. But areas where the subsidence is not happening, we don't want to punish them with the same rules because, because the clay may be reacting very differently in some areas than it does in other areas, or the clay doesn't exist at all in some areas. So that was actually a big discussion as to, are we going to set limits by aquifer? Ultimately, it was decided not at this time, but we are going to make sure that any impacts that are occurring, whether it's dry wells or subsidence, those are being handled separately by our other programs, and they will start to limit pumping. Subsidence for sure will start to limit pumping before anything else across the entire sub-basin, not just this GSA. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, if you go
Oh, it
back,
does. I
go
mean, I
back to
know
the
it's-
first slide, that one slide that showed subsidence. The problem
Yeah.
really isn't us. It's to the east. It's massive.
Yeah, I think it's like the fourth slide in the.
And it shows, it's not clear, but it could show you that the GSA that we're in has some areas that are starting to subside, but it's not as massive as all the other GSAs. So if we don't comply and they don't comply, we're going to have a serious problem. But they have it worse than we do.
And we are trying to coordinate with our surrounding neighbors as well on that subsidence issue.
We won't know for years if it's going to work or not.
Yeah, and everyone is implementing groundwater allocations. Yes, this slide. Thank you.
Well, isn't the lack of a coordinated vision on subsidence the reason why we're even sitting here right now? Is it
It's been
it wouldn't even exist if that wasn't taken care of.
yeah, it's an ongoing discussion, certainly.
And you can see with our neighboring GSA to the west, the subsidence isn't a great deal right there. And it gets a little bit greater in one corner of our GSA, and then it goes really bad on the other side. Plus, they got white areas.
What's white?
Where's white?
The white area
What
means,
does white represent?
the white means that
No
there's no satellite data that they're reporting in those areas.
Oh, it doesn't mean that there's no subsidence. It
Does
just
not
means
mean that there's no subsidence. It just means that the satellite data right there is not, they're not able to calibrate the data well enough to be able to report it to us.
Or they're paid not to. Oh, I said it.
That seems pretty.
Yeah, because that don't make no sense.
So there are other ways that we're measuring subsidence through benchmarks and other sources in those areas.
It's $1 an acre. It's not that expensive.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
Amir, whenever we're looking at that area that's east of Mid Kings,
Yes.
are they pumping more from below the clay level, or do you know that?
East of Mid Kings?
Yes, you know,
So-
the area that you said is worse than we are,
Oh, the east side.
the east side? Yeah.
I don't know that they have bedrock. The closer you go to the foothills, the closer the bedrock is, and they have less room to pull water from. They might have, close to the foothills, they may have 100 feet. We have about 480 to 500 feet before the cork and clay. So it changes. That's why we really need to stay in our own lane, let them figure out their problem versus our problem to the best of our ability.
Yeah, and the clay does not react the same across the entire area, and it's a lot shallower in some areas as well. So when we say we're pumping more, it literally may be true because the clay may be as shallow as 250 feet in some areas. And it starts to peter out as you move to the east as well. So there are, but yeah, you can see from this map they clearly have some ongoing subsidence issues that they're going to be addressing through their policies. Our hands aren't perfectly clean. We have some orange in our area, but we're working to address that as well.
And there's areas on this map that past this map that they're not showing. It has some sidings too, and towards the left side that's not showing up on this map near Avenue Cutoff.
Yes.
Any
So-
more questions? This is an action item, and I'll take a motion to approve as presented. Motion by Supervisor Robinson. Item B, yes. Second by Supervisor Thayer. Madam Clerk, any question from the audience? This is the beginning of the end. Do we need this on record? Step up to the mic and then we get it on record, because your question is important.
Sorry,
To state your name too.
Dan Pfizer. I live on 11th Avenue, 5401. So my question is, if we adopt these allocation numbers and start making decisions and pulling out trees and that kind of thing, can the state still come in and say, we don't approve this plan, that those numbers aren't going to work? We need lower numbers? Or
Okay. Yes, Dan, unfortunately, since we're not having those regular communication with the state, which, I talked about earlier, they are going to ask us to show that our plan is effective and that it is meeting the requirements and it's doing all the things that we said it was going to do. If it doesn't do that, the state can come back and say, hey, you need to continue to modify your plan accordingly. We think this is a good start. We base this on the best information we have to date, and we are comfortable that we can defend these values to the state.
so do you think that this is plenty, or do you think it's over the top? Maybe if I start pulling out trees, I don't want to pull out too many,
Right.
Well,
but we still don't know what the rules are.
I think once we have this plan in place, we vote on it today. In 2 years from now, you're going to know where you stand, what you can afford to farm with the water you have allowed to you, and how you can find that balance.
But I got to
According
make
your
decisions
pocketbook.
this month, next month, whether I'm going to spend money on those trees or pull them out now.
I wouldn't make a rash adjustment right yet. I think just give it 24 months to see what we come up with. And don't panic. We're just gradually still starting. For myself, I got surface water. I'm not going to pull out any trees unless I got some that aren't working real well, but we may be able to make it work. It depends on how it works. I just need to get through it to understand it better. I know I talked to Mark Toss. He says he can explain it to me. You can find that balance, and you may be able to find that balance too.
Well, I get no
you can't
surface
do it with
water.
30-cent walnuts.
I get no surface water. So if I got to live with 1.43 plus 1 acre transitional for 5 years, I got to start pulling trees now.
Well, you might be able to buy water from your neighbor.
There's no conveyance. There's
No,
no,
but you might be able to pay for surface water, groundwater, so someone is not using it. Am I correct?
We're going to start working on a trading platform. That is definitely one of the concepts that we're like to move forward with, so that and the policy does allow right now for trading. We just don't have an electronic platform, but we will manage it through the GSA at this time.
And it's going to be the good name. You're going to have to report yourself. We're not going to go out there and monitor you. Not if this, we have no money for that. We have no personnel. We have nothing. And we don't even want to have this board in place when this is going. We want to turn it back over to the growers to let them handle it. To keep the state and the government and the politicians out of it. I don't want anybody to overreact.
we got to react.
I know, but if we don't, the state's going to come and shut it down anyways, and you still got to pay them, and you get nothing in return. This way, if we do a 218, you'll get some conveyance and some people to talk to that protect you. With the state doing it, we don't have no protection.
So do you think there will be a marketplace for trading water? Is that what you're working on?
You might be able to make more money selling your water to your neighbor than farming your trees.
What are you saying? You don't like my trees?
In 2023 or 24, at 32 cents hurt.
Yeah, and we didn't get paid 100% last year if you were with the wrong handler.
Yes. So you might find a different market for yourself. You might have something that's very
We've done
valuable.
that, but yeah.
But don't panic. I'm not telling you it's going to work out. I'm just saying that there are ways to keep you alive, keep your ground viable.
We will be definitely, the policy allows for the trading. It also allows you credits for any recharge or anything else that you might be doing or your neighbors might be doing and their ability to trade that recharge credits as well. So we will be actively working and trading programs have worked in other surrounding GSAs where they have they're a little bit ahead of us, so they have those programs in place. But yeah, we did those 5-year steps on purpose to try and give you, at least you can look 5 years into the future and say, this is what at least I know I can count on these numbers for the next 5 years.
That's kind of what I'm asking. What are the rules?
And
What are
one
the-
question is, so he's in a white area.
Yeah.
Did he purchase surface water from, say, Last Chance Ditch or Peoples and then pay for, he's a small farm, he buys 50 acre feet and he sinks it in the ground in a basin nearby?
So
Would that help him?
as long as the rules of the ditch company and the irrigation, whatever that surface water source is, allow for him to do that, then yeah, as far as the GSA is concerned, we'll allow you to give you credit, or you can, if someone else sinks it, you can still buy their credit as well, or
So,
trade their credit.
We need our operation agreement with our surface water handlers, correct?
Yes, and we're working, actually meeting with them to work on that very issue.
Because there's water out there available. Yes, sir.
The trading platform. Right. Yeah. So our plan is for this since we're into the new water year now, we want to start tracking on what's going on and start getting an idea of exactly, through the land IQ, the ET data, other and meter reporting exactly where and how much water we're using without going through and starting to penalize everyone until the budgets are set and the Prop 218s or the 26 are passed. But at least it starts to give you an idea of how much water we're saying that you're using and start to get those numbers out there to everyone so they can start to see that. Part of it also is getting that platform that I mentioned earlier, the RFQs, getting that platform up and running, which we hope to have by the middle of the year. And then we'll be looking at, hey, do we implement and with the fees and everything else in place into water year 27. We do need to show the state that we have the ability to implement if we're going to make the request to get out of probation, and we have to show them that we're making progress. But we don't necessarily have to start charging the fees on, as Carl pointed out on day one. I'm hedging a little bit. You can tell I'm hedging a little bit because there's a few things that have to happen and get into place before we feel like we're ready to say, hey, we're going to start charging you on this date. But that's also part of our outreach efforts to let you know exactly when the fees will come into effect and how much they will be.
Don't panic, Dan.
Yeah, well,
It's not good, but I wouldn't panic. It may be able to work. You may be able to figure out a way to work it out. I know I talked to my neighboring GSAs in another county, and they were just doom and gloom. And they're saying they figure a way to work it out. They figure a way to manage it. And so it's just going to be a different way of farming. Not only will you have might, you will have a drought year on a flood year at the same time because you can't get water. But it'd be up to you to figure that out for your own ranch.
thank you.
Okay, good luck. I'm there for you. I get a canal drill cut across the railroad tracks. Yeah. Now, I didn't come up with a plan. This is the people behind you and around you. Any other questions?
Tough crowd.
I hope we can laugh at it because this is very serious and it's not a good place to be. So, any other questions? Any comments? We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Deborah Boone,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer,
Yes.
Kimber Regan.
Yes,
Okay, 5 in favor, 1 absent. Good luck. We'll go on now to item number C.
Okay.
Update on direction on pilot well mitigation program.
I mean, I'm going to continue my presentation. If you can go ahead to the one that says pilot well mitigation, it's a few more. Right there. Thank you. So we are going to start a pilot program to do a well mitigation. We have, on the next slide, please. We have 4 dry wells that have been identified by self-help enterprises. In this area, they are currently providing water to all of them, meaning bottled water and tank water to those houses. So they're all on supplied water. Their recommendation back to us was to drill 3 new replacement wells and connect one of those 4 well owners to the city water supply. Chuck and I have met with the city regarding that very topic, and so we're under discussions with them to connect that one well owner. We also then reached out to self-help for this pilot program and said, hey, give us an agreement and your cost estimate of what it was going to cost to do this work if we work with them. Now, if you recall earlier in the presentation, I said that was one of the RFPs we're going out for well mitigation services. So this is strictly a pilot program that we're working with self-help. It is not the final program. It is intended for us to better understand all of the steps that we would have to go through in order to get the program working. It also allows us to kind of iron out some of the issues. One of the plans that self-help has done in other areas is they have a way of getting a loan to the well owner, and that way we don't, it's not a direct payment from the GSA. So there are a number of steps in there that we'd like to see how well they work. We'd like to see how effective they are in our area, how much and how long, and what kind of time frame we would be talking about. Providing supplied water to these houses is very expensive, and the sooner we can get them off of that supplied water, the better off we are. Next slide, please. So we got an estimate from self-help on this very program. Essentially, they have their administrative fees of about $13,000. That's oversight, outreach, processing some of the paperwork, inspections, water quality testing, etc. And then they came in with another $83,000 in project costs. This is bringing the tanks to the site, hauled water for a year, bottled water for a year, system maintenance, the well itself, which is about $60,000, and then treatment, ongoing treatment. They said about 20% of their wells that when they drill new ones require treatment. So they went ahead and estimated some of these things for us. So we would be looking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $96,000 a well. We were a little surprised to get some of these fees. We thought this was higher than what Chuck and I were expecting. So we are still in ongoing discussions with them. One of the questions that we have, of course, is about the water supply. Are we, meaning the GSA, responsible for that? And should we be reimbursing them for that service? So there's some ongoing discussions on that. But I bring this up just to give you an idea of what we're looking at on a per well basis. Next slide, please. So on that 60,000 roughly for the well installation, it's a 500-foot well, PVC casing. It includes the cost for the permits. It includes the cost of abandoning the old well, new pump and electrical systems, lab testing, chlorination of the old well or the new well, and then connecting to water lines. Oh, looks like Brian has a question. Brian, let me finish and I'll call you out. So the idea here was just, the drillers gave a pretty detailed cost estimate on this new well drilling, and it ends up being around 57,500, which they rounded it up to about 60 in the previous slide. So at this time, what we're asking the board is we'd like to move forward with discussions with self-help. We'd like to move forward with the pilot program. We'd like to come back to you all with exact fees for each individual case so that you know what you're approving and exactly what each individual well owner is going to receive. We also want to work through some of the details of the agreements with legal and make sure that the what self-help has done in some of the other areas will work for us. Chuck, you want to add anything, or is there anything I forgot?
Yeah, so we're really just looking for direction, whether you want us to continue forward. And if so, then we'll bring back an agreement with self-help to be able to move forward on these 4 projects. And we'll have the finalized numbers specific to each of the wells.
Okay, so this is a total cost of a new well.
Yes.
Per well.
Replacing a well that already existed. Is there any kind of a pro rata share of owner responsibility of that well?
We don't have that in our policy currently, so I don't believe that we have the.
I mean, I was going to buy a piece of property and the well was bad. I just have you guys drill me a new one. I'm good. But there's got to be some responsibility of the landowner. You drill a well in 1946 and it goes out. It's not the neighbor's problem for the well deteriorating because you only drilled a 125-foot well. There should be some ownership on the landowner. I don't want people to take advantage of us. I think there should be a pro rata share. And there's got to be something out there now. I mean, I had a lawsuit where I had a developer broke one of my wells and they paid to replace it, but up to the life expectancy of the well that I already had. And I think that's fair to everybody, especially when you're making neighbors pay for a neighbor's well. I don't think we should just drill someone a new well. Time to get up. I don't think it's fair to the whole GSA to be paying for somebody's domestic well that had zero repair or upkeep on it for the last 20, 30 years or 5 years or 1 year. I know I have my own wells and it's constant. You're always doing something to it. So I would love to see a pro rata share, some kind of formula that says, you know, from the time the drill was drilled, what it was used for. And, you know, if you got to measure the well casing, if it caved in or broke or something like that, it's not really stigma that caused that. It's just ran out of life. So there's something we can do there.
There are other GSAs that do have policies similar to what you're asking that we could look at. In terms of this, we're looking at just the pilot program right here.
Pilot with self-help.
With self-help. But we can.
Are they making money on it? It seems like a little high. I mean, my neighbor drilled a well at 25,000 and it was 480 feet and it's a nice well. And it wasn't my responsibility to buy him a new well because I owned properties all around him because the well was drilled in 1946 and it was 160 feet deep. And on 2024, the water table was back at 85 feet. So he ran out of water, but the well wasn't deep enough. So I don't know where it's my responsibility as a neighbor that I took his water. Do I get credit for bringing the water back to the flood year? So this kind of program here will divide our neighborhood. It will divide our whole community if we start paying for wells, people that don't need it because we took their water. We need to have something in place to protect us from that.
Mr. Chair. This is one of the things that I brought up yesterday. My thought process is I could take and see homeowners that own property and know that the well is bad and could take and literally use the program to take and have a new well put in and then now use that as a selling feature. So now they sell it and make the profit off of it. My thought is if they're taking and doing something like that, there should be some sort of a lien put on the property so that the GSA is able to take and recoup the cost of the well when the property is sold.
Good point.
Because the property is worth a whole lot more with a new well than it was with no well.
Yes.
Or a bad one.
Especially domestic, because there's no limitations on what you can pump out of it. I mean, Dan's gonna hook up all his domestic, keeps trees alive.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just so I understand, so I agree with Doug also. But didn't this come up before at the last meeting? And basically that's why we labeled it a pilot program.
Yes.
Because we needed to get through this process in order to get an approval. However, we may intend to change that, right? To take a look at it later.
Yes.
That's
So, because if we were to dive into what Doug's saying right now, even though that's probably the right path, how much impact would that have on approval?
The state has looked at several of the existing mitigation programs, and they had many of them had what Doug suggested, and they hate it. And they went back and changed them all so that it removed the pro rata share that Doug has mentioned. The King subbasin directly to our north across the river, they have it in theirs, but they're under the control of Department of Water Resources. The State Water Board is the one that's been pushing
So on
back.
probation, we have to do this.
Yes.
Got it. So this
Yes.
is, this just helps show that we're a good actor. We're doing what we can to protect our neighbors.
Yeah.
And once we get on DWR, we can change it.
Well, I
Wait,
think,
can I turn it off?
yeah, I think the idea is that we're working with our neighbors, but the language that's in our program does not mention the pro rata share that Doug mentioned, that Chairman Verbun mentioned, that specifically because that's what the state, what our conversations with Kauai, with Kern, the two subbasins that have been recently released by the state back to the Department of Water Resources. They basically said that this was not something that the state liked in their plans, and that they changed their plans accordingly. This gets back to what Doug was saying at the beginning, which is we're not talking to the state, right? So we're not getting this feedback directly. We kind of have to look at what others are doing and what worked and what got past the state. It's not optimal, but that's kind of where we're at with the conversation with this, or the lack of communication by the state. That's their decision. So that's one of the reasons that we kind of did this. The other thing, I believe, Director Regan mentioned here that the property values, that is also addressed by some of the work that self-help has done. They've set it up that if the property is sold within a certain amount of time after the well is drilled, that some of the money comes back to the GSA out of that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons that we actually do want to do the pilot, so that we can kind of work our way through these and see where we need to update, modify, change our plan accordingly.
So we need 500,000 for these 4 wells to start. Possibly. You're going to bring it back to us at the next
Yeah.
meeting with a plan.
possibly 400. There's 4 wells roughly. I
And then
think it was
do we need to use self-help
93,
in this
94.
process? Can we just hire a well driller, drill a well?
So self-help's gotten bids from 2 local well drillers for us. Within their proposal, they showed what was given to them from the well driller, and
Yeah, but they're dealing with a government agency. So they're going to raise the rate anyways. Because there's a lot of red tape when it comes to government agencies doing a well. I mean, when Mike Myers was alive, he could drill a well within 24 hours and get you working. But once the government's involved, you're talking triple the price and double the amount of time, or 100 times more time. Takes a year. So I understand the higher fee, but if we weren't a government agency, possibly it'd be cheaper. So we got to get through the pilot program, prove that we're doing the right thing for our community. Hopefully the state will talk to us after this. We might be wasting 400,000. We might be buying ourselves some time.
the state will be invited down for the ribbon cutting ceremonies, and
Oh, we're gonna cut a ribbon
Yeah.
in front of the trailer house, or is it a nice house?
it's a house.
Okay.
I had just a question.
Amir?
Oh, yeah, Brian, I'm sorry.
No
Go ahead,
problem. I
Steve.
had a couple questions and a couple comments. Has the investigation of these wells only been done by self-help so far?
So far, yes, just by self-help, yes.
And as a pilot program, is there an ability to pilot with another organization that's submitted a proposal to do the same work? Can we do a pilot with 2 different, or is it only allowable with self-help?
We've only requested for self-help at this time, Brian, just to get through the pilot process. But we certainly are going to be sending the RFPs to everyone who might be interested in doing that. So there's going to, the final agency or group that we end up working with may be very different. It doesn't have to be self-help. This is just for the pilot program because they've done this before.
Okay, all right. I just curious if there's an opportunity to run kind of a dual pilot, right? Two different entities, two different processes potentially. But I understand exactly what you're saying. So the only other comment I would have is obviously the board has made the comment at the last meeting and then this meeting again related to the fact they're not necessarily happy with our well mitigation policy the way it stands and the lack of flexibility given the comments that they've made. And it would be in the board's purview to say, hey, go back and figure this out before we start the pilot program is my only comment that I have. If there is a strong enough desire to make some changes to the pilot as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I think that one thing is that they answered was the fact that we're not able to talk to DWR to find out what really works, and we're under scrutiny to do the right thing. So, yeah, you gotta, yeah. This is a tough position to be in. Be nice if they talk to us. They promised us April 16th, 2024 that they would talk to us weekly, and they refused to from day one. All right, so
I just had a question too. Yeah, it was on the self-help enterprises. Is this, I don't know if there's more than one. Is it self-help? Is that the same group?
One.
Are they're out of Visalia?
Yes, yes.
And there are no other groups in this county that do that?
No, I'm sure that there are others that are going to submit bids on the RFPs. But self-help is currently doing this type of work for both the state as well as other GSAs, several in the Kauai subbasin, and they're doing pilot tests over there as well. Because everyone's trying to figure this out, try to figure out what works, what works the best for the individual GSA.
Right. And I'm not trying to be hard on whatever this group was we just said with their name, self-help. I'm not trying to be hard on them. But I just look back into the county too, like, hey, what are they? I don't know if their board of directors get paid. I don't know what their president gets paid or their line staff over there. If you kind of get the direction where I'm going.
The chairman has a really nice suit.
I'm sure he does. But then, looking back locally, that at least ultimately, if dollars are going to start disappearing from our growers' pockets into a group like this, it would be nice for the group that's doing the work back in this county live here and invest back into our schools and our grocery stores and buy their cars from our dealers here. And it's another gut punch. Again, not knocking them. I know nobody asked for this. I said this the last time. The state has forced us to put a gun to our head and pull the trigger, or the state has forced us to kill ourselves. It's just a matter and method of which we're going to determine how we're best going to do it. I think all of it's wrong. I do appreciate everybody here in the room that's helping, and I see you standing there, Garrett. I'll turn it to you.
No, you're fine. I mean, that your sentiment of keeping money local, doing something that is very cost effective. We don't have a choice. We got to do it. I've been a big proponent of looking outside of self-help. Again, nothing against you guys, but they are a government agency. Money comes in. They don't really, I'm assuming they're like every government agency. If you don't have that money spent by the end of the year, you better spend it or your budget is cut by that much the following year.
I think that are they not a nonprofit?
They are
Right,
NGO. Yes.
Yeah.
Non-government, but they operate like a government funding source. How about that? But what Amir is saying is that it ticks a couple boxes. Is number one, other guys are using them. The other part is having an NGO involved is supposedly looking good in the state's eyes, which I'm starting to get clouded on that subject since they don't want to talk to us. I don't know why we have to go that way anyway. But I would prefer, and it was this group's view, that keeping the money local, so you hit it on the head, it stays here, it gets invested here, at least the money is staying within the county. I think the self-help was just the quick and easy button right now. So whether we decide to use them now or not, I would prefer that not be a long-term solution. But again, it was just the quick and easy one. So
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Mr. Kenny, does the county, do we still have our CDBG funds invested with self-help?
Self-help currently is the consultant that is hired by the Kings County to run the housing programs.
That's what that was. So the question you just asked, I asked all the way back in 2009 when the county gets their annual competitive allotments of funding, we send that money to self-help. So it doesn't even stay in the county too. So this is the same thing in the same perspective. But the other thing that I would ask moving forward, if it ever came into play, does this agency, do we have to fall under what we do at the Board of Supervisors as far as the Kings County local vendor preference policy when it comes to bids and the advantage for Kings County businesses, even if they get outbid by out of county businesses, they still have a good shot at landing the bid in the contract.
So the McKeans River GSA is completely separate from the county. I don't believe that the GSA has established any policies in hiring preferences.
I didn't think we did. I just don't know if it made sense to even consider that to move forward to put that under the umbrella. It's a good policy is what we have at the board level to keep the dollars in the county.
We got well drilled live in our district, so we might as well support them.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you need anything else from us to go forward with it, bringing it back to us? Have we confused you enough?
Well, Kimber does have one more question, but
Sorry.
Real fast. Couple of things. One, I see 500-foot well. I mean, I know you guys know which areas or there's abilities to know whether it's 100-foot well or a 50-foot well or whether it's 1,000-foot well. Are we taking that into consideration whenever we're making the commitment to pay this? Another thing is on that other screen, it mentioned bottled water for a year. Doug is mentioning that certain people can take and have a well drilled in a day or two or a week. Why are we taking and obligating ourselves for a year's worth of bottled water? And another thing is, whenever I saw the screen that said $13,100, I was thinking, is that what we're paying a year or is that what we're paying a month? And then I realized that that's what we're paying per well. Okay, so I mean, it seems to me like we should or could or possibly, or maybe you guys have already taken and tried negotiating it, but try to get those costs down because I feel like because I mean, you might know where those different wells are. And I know that there's certain people that could take and see, well, that's only going to be a 100-foot well, or that's going to be a 50-foot well. So why are we paying $57,500 based on a 500 square foot or 500-foot well whenever it may not be a 500-foot well? Anyway, that's all I'm saying. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, these were just for budgeting purposes, just to kind of come in, give you guys an idea of what the cost would be. So we would be coming back with individual, and it may be very different than 500 feet. So we're going to come back to you and be able to say, hey, well, number one is going to be this and this cost, and well, number two is going to look like this, and well, number three is going to be different. So at least the minimum threshold.
at least.
Yeah.
And you're correct. We have questions with self-help as well about the annual cost for providing water that they've been providing already through other funding sources. So we're hoping to be able to have that resolved before we bring
There's got to be some accountability when it comes to delivering water to someone's house. I mean, I buy water from my employees because the state requires water from my employees. And so I just get a pallet of water from Costco. That gets delivered to my house, $400, $380, 2 pallets a year. And that takes care of all my house and my employees and my harvest time employees. And I could probably do 3 pallets, but still not no $13,000. So, and I think a lot of it goes home to their homes. So I see them grab 4 or 5 bottles when I leave my house. So
I was going to say, if you're writing that off, can you throw half a pallet in it from there? Give you some cash under the table.
I'll send the link to you. Yeah, I mean, I think they've exaggerated their figures too. So we got to get this past us. Let's get past this, and it's this focused on our own and take care of our own people.
So your question to me was if I have enough direction, and I believe I do. I believe that I'm hearing from the board that you want us to proceed forward, get contracts with self-help to be able to bring and finalize the numbers at your next meeting.
No more than 4 wells at this time.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we can put something together after that.
And just a real quick question, is that 57? I know it was just a budget number, but is that because it has to be a prevailing wage type job?
That was from the well drillers.
That was their bid.
Bid.
So So are they billing prevailing wage, or is that like if I was gonna go build a well, is that what it's gonna cost me? Because somebody out here said somebody's making some money,
Well,
more money than they need to be.
that's a little exaggerated. That's probably closer to what the costs are today. Because the well we drilled was 3-4 years ago. It was 28,480 feet, submersible with a pressurized tank, with electricity to it. So, that could be close, depending on where they're at and how they got to get in there.
And both bids that were received from the well drillers are local well drillers.
Yeah. Anything else from us? You good?
Not on this item.
Okay, we'll go on now to the next one, which will be update on sustainable management criteria. Amir, floor is yours again.
All right. So next slide, please. So on the sustainable management criteria, these are strictly drafts. These are not been finalized. These are not the final values. I want to emphasize that I'm going to go through these quickly. I just want to present these to you so that the board is aware of that this discussion is taking place, and that these are ongoing, and that we will bring you the final version as we start to finalize these. So the sustainable indicators, essentially, these are the 6 that the state written into Sigma, I should say. They're the lowering of the groundwater, a reduction in groundwater storage, seawater intrusion, which is not much of a problem for us, water quality, land subsidence, and then surface water depletion, which again is not much of a concern for us in this area. So the 4 essentially are the land subsidence, the water quality, storage, and water levels. We are negotiating these values with all of our neighboring GSAs because this is one area that they would like to see a coordinated effort between the entire subbasin. So of all the chapters that we're writing, the geology is the same chapter, and then these revised SMCs will be one chapter that will be in all 5 of the GSPs that we submit. Everything else, the monitoring programs, the other things that we have are going to modify slightly, but and we'll write those individually for our own area. But these will probably be specific across or be the same across the subbasin. Next slide, please. So there was a lot of this slide is in here because this is the way we currently have in the draft 24 document. All of this information is repeated on some of the other slides, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I at least wanted to make sure that the board got a chance to see this. One of the things I want to point out is that the undesirable result is what we consider when bad things start to happen. These are the results we want to avoid. And then the minimum threshold is the value at which the undesirable result starts to occur. So these are the values that are in the 24 document. These were not approved by the state. Okay. The discussions were just barely starting with the state when they had started to review our document, when they stopped communication with us when the injunction went into place. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing, and one of the reasons that we came up with some of the values that we did, is we went back and we looked at what Kern and Kauai did in theirs and how they got out of probation. So some of the things that they pointed out to us in their discussions with the state was very specific that they wanted quantifiable values. So how many wells are you going to allow to go dry a year? How many wells are you going to allow to go dry cumulatively? What constitutes that undesirable result at that point? Now, I do want to point out that we have a well mitigation program, right? That we just spent a whole bunch of time talking about. So when I write on here, and again, these are strictly the first cut draft, 10 wells, we can start to mitigate some of these, right? So we start to see wells going dry, but we can also start to mitigate them. And that doesn't constitute a undesirable result if we can mitigate some of these problems and address some of these things. But the state did then say, hey, look, cumulatively, those are a lot of impacts. Those are individual families, individual landowners that are getting impacted by these wells going dry. So that's why there's a total cumulative value as well. So what we did is we started to look at some of the values with the information we currently have on wells. And we will be the first ones to admit that we're using state databases as well as Kings County database. We think there's a lot of room for improvement on that. And we came back and said, okay, these are the values that we think are going to occur. Now, in the discussion yesterday with the stakeholder group, one of the questions that came up is on the minimum thresholds right now, we're letting 10 feet drop below 2015 water levels. The water levels that were set, at 2015 that occurred, and those were some of the lowest water levels that we had, we're going to allow them to drop below that. One of the questions that came up yesterday was, okay, instead of that B zone, we said we're going to drop 30 feet. What if we said that that's 40 or 50 or 60 feet? How many more wells are going to go dry? So that B zone, so the A zone is the top 100 feet or so. The B zone is from the below the A to the top of the Corcoran clay. And then the C is what we're calling below the Corcoran clay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so have we monitoring wells yet? No average.
So we're monitoring about 50 wells roughly. In 2024, yeah, we monitored. Oh yeah. No, those values, the water levels today are much higher than 2015 in most wells. Yeah, in fact, I think in all the wells in Mid Kings. Yeah, it's come up since. So we allowed 30 more feet below 2015. And then we went back and said, okay, 145 wells to go dry across the entire subbasin, not just this GSA, across the entire subbasin. Now, having said that, I will tell you that the vast majority of those wells are in Mid Kings because we have the most wells, right? There's not as many wells in some of the other areas. So we did, one of the things the stakeholder committee said, hey, if we allow this to drop more, how many more wells would go dry and what's the cost of that? So is it more cost effective to mitigate more wells if we allow the water levels to continue to drop, and what kind of impacts would be looking at? And would that be acceptable to the state? So these are some of the things that we're going to continue to evaluate, run some of these numbers and come back to the stakeholder group and say, hey, does this make sense? Can you guys, if we're going to say that we're going to mitigate, let's say, just for the sake of discussion, roughly, we said that last number we used was 96,000. Let's just say 100 grand to make it a nice round number. 10 wells is $1 million, right? A year. If it's 20 wells, do we want it to be, if we allow it to drop to say 40 or 50 feet, can we afford to do that? So at what point, and that's what they were really asking for, is how many more wells are going to be potentially impacted and what would be the cost to mitigate those? And does that make sense for this area versus, versus keeping the values where they're at? The trade-off, right? If the more wells that go dry, the higher the impacts, the more money we have to set aside for potential well mitigation. So that's one of the things that we're going to come back to this group after we've come up with those numbers and get agreement from the stakeholder group.
So if you allocated $1 million for 10 wells.
Yeah.
At 97,000 acres,
that's 97,000 acres only in Mid Kings. This is 10 wells across the entire subbasin, which is 500,000 acres. Yeah, right. But they're going to occur. A lot of those 10 are going to occur here, just FYI. No, they probably won't give us money. All right, let me keep.
And did I hear? I don't think you used the term best guess, but I'm understanding it to be like, this is our kind of our best guess of what the state's gonna
We
accept, or that,
this is what the type of values that they accepted, the methodology that they accepted in both Kuya and Kern, who were both recently released from probation.
but we don't know that because they won't communicate with us.
That's right.
Right.
We have not had the opportunity to present any of these numbers to the state. And these
So-
are not our final numbers, by the way.
No, and I appreciate that. And I just throw this out there because I've just been sitting here stewing for the last 90 minutes. Just on that fact that they're not communicating with us. And I don't know then if it's like something that from the council standpoint to fire a shot across their bow. Because we're trying to build something that we're kind of blind in. Like I get it that, hey, they approved these others, but there's stuff to say that I don't think the others sued them either, or didn't have groups suing. And maybe they did, I don't know. But I don't know. I think a shot across their bow, that they need to come back to the table if they expect us to be successful in this. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Sorry.
So can I give us answer that a little bit? So I have communication with one of the board members, and so they're thankful that we're doing what we're doing, and they appreciate it. So I don't know that we should threaten them. I know that I don't want to separate any kind of communication that we've had. I'm hearing good things back through other people that they're watching us constantly and appreciate that we've reached out to our community. So I don't know that it's time for let the Farm Bureau do what they're doing.
And I don't know, I'm not trying to suggest that when I say shot across their bow, that probably sounds intimidating, but I don't mean that as a threat to them. And I don't know, council, if there's like the 5th district is the one that took this up and on appeal, like, can this board, ping the 5th district and go, hey, what do you want us to do? The state's not communicating. Here's the email. Like they're not going to talk to us. What's the court's direction now?
We are researching that issue to find out what the best course of action is and what the options are for the board. So we'll have an answer to you before your next meeting.
I have a fast question. Amir, I know that yesterday in the meeting and everything, whenever it was brought up, maybe doing 40 feet or 50 feet instead of 30. Do you think, and I mean, I'm just using this as an example, but I know that in the kind of work that I normally do, I see that if somebody offers something, the person a lot of times comes back and counters asking for more. Okay, should we take and have it where we have 40 or 50 there? Just because they're going to come back and say, no, we won't give you 50, but we'll give you 40 or we'll give you 30.
Yeah, they certainly, in Thule, where I'm working in, they did, the Thule came back with an initial very high. In fact, we have 145 cumulative wells going dry. I think their initial estimate was over 400. And the state was like, no way, we are not going to let you get 400 wells dry. So that there may be, I don't think they view it as a negotiation. They view it as impacts. But they've never come out and said number X is acceptable and number Y is not.
But you don't think that no matter what we offer, that they're going to come back and make it tougher on us?
I think we have to have good justification for what we're doing, and we're trying to come up with those similar to what has been approved in these other two recently.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to keep moving very quickly because this, as you pointed out, is getting to be a long meeting. Next slide, please. So on groundwater storage, this is the amount of water that's actually stored in the aquifer. Kern did an actual calculation as to how much they would allow groundwater to be volume to be reduced based off the 2015 number. We did a similar type of calculation and we came up with over 3.5 million acre feet. This would be the cumulative value over between 2015 and 2040. And we're still refining that number a bit, but we used a methodology very similar to what Kern did. I know that looks like a very big number, 3.5 million acre feet, but Kern's number was quite a bit higher than that as well. Okay, next slide, please.
As long as they're not taking our groundwater out.
Yeah, right. So On groundwater quality, the issue was how many wells would be impacted, would have to exceed our thresholds before we would say that's an undesirable result. And the other thing that I found very interesting is that both of them had values for small community wells. That was not something that we've ever had. It's never been brought up to us, at least in the state discussions, but both of them had it. So it means that the state must be very much focused in on that issue as well. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but this is where discussions with the state would have been very helpful to understand, to make sure we understand that a little bit better as well.
Yeah, 'cause we got our Mona, Pioneer School.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, we took a little bit of a guess as to, we used a little bit of the methodology that Kuya did and did something similar, but we don't standing here. I'd be kidding you if I told you I knew for sure the state would accept that. So again, this is one where we are doing the best we can with the information that we have with no communication. The constituents of concern, you see that list, the salinity, nitrates, arsenic, uranium, gross alpha, sulfate, chloride, and the 123 TCP. Those are the specific compounds that they've said are of concern for this area in their resolution when they put us on probation. So those are the compounds that we're going to be focusing on, nothing else this time. Next slide, please. On subsidence, we basically said that it would be a cumulative value. And if you recall, when we were talking about the subsidence management plan last time we met, that we went back to 2020 as our baseline. And we basically said other than on the boundaries for Mid-Kings, the vast majority of our area would be 7 feet from 2020. About a little bit under 2 feet has already occurred since then. So we've got about 5 feet left in most places. And we are tracking that on a quarterly basis across the GSA.
That kind of goes just really quick back. I mean, Doug, what you said earlier. I mean, if 2015 is, you were using that as kind of a marker for water not to go below a certain depth of that time. And then since then, if I understood this correctly, like the water in the basin is filled up 80 feet. Is that, am I correct in that standard? So just to mind them, you know, this, the water went up 80 feet and we still sunk 7 feet.
We didn't sink 7 feet. We sunk 2 feet.
Oh, 2 feet. We got another 5 to go.
Yeah.
Well, even we sunk 2 feet, even though water levels.
It's just not, that's the water that we get, the recharge is not.
Is not right. So, I mean, that's just the whole absurdity of this. Not, I don't mean that in an offensive,
right, no.
To it, but it's just the absurdity of.
No matter what we do, we can't fix.
We're gonna sink. Yeah, we're gonna sink.
So the vast majority of those happened in the 21-22 water years, which were 2 drought years. That's the overwhelming majority of the numbers. The last 3 years, certainly in 23, we saw very little. And in the last 2 years, we've seen a much lower rate of subsidence. But we do have some concerns of subsidence in this area, and we certainly have some concerns of some of the impacts to our infrastructure as well. And that's what the subsidence management plan from the last meeting was intended to specifically address. I think this is my last slide, by the way, so I will give you guys a break. You don't have to listen to me after this. Unless you have any more questions. Yeah, I know. It's been a long day. Yeah. Mr. Chair, that's it for me.
We're looking at in the next meeting, you're going to bring back the direction on the climate well mitigation plan.
Yes, sir.
And what else?
And revise some updates on what we're doing on the threshold so that you're all aware and you can kind of see where we're going with those.
Okay.
I need to get some buy-in from the stakeholder committee.
Anything you need from
Oh,
us?
and water quality, yes. And yes.
Anything you need from us? Stakeholder meets when? You guys are slowing down a little bit, or?
We'll meet come January 12th.
Okay. Well, we wish the stakeholders a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and thank you for your service. And thank you for what you do. We have board member comments, board correspondence. Anybody have anything you want to say? Chuck, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, well, no closed session. We'll be back here January 13th, 2026 at 1 p.m. 13th.
Stakeholders on the 12th.